The Straw Hats teamed up with the Giants to make a break for it from Egghead. But of course, the Gorosei weren't about to let them escape. They were ready to wipe them off the face of the earth. Buckle up because the finale of this episode is absolutely insane. Back in Egghead, Bonnie's absolutely wrecked after leaving that secret room. She tells Vegapunk she saw all of Kuma's memory. The old man's all sad because he broke the promise he made to her dad. Just minutes ago, Bonnie was ready to rip the old man's head off. But now, she's back to her child form, giving the old man a hug and apologizing. Then, that big mouth of hers asks him to hold out his hand, handing over Kuma's 10-year anniversary gift. It's a sapphire necklace shaped like the sun. Bonnie's pumped because it reminds her of her hero, and Kuma's hero, Nika, the sun god. The old man's like, who would have thought that kid would turn into this? Bonnie asks if Luffy's the son of Kuma's best friend, and Vegapunk says even he was surprised when those two showed up together. Then he tells her everything that happened while she was going through Kuma's memories. A lot went down, right? I mean, she spent like 6 episodes watching that stuff. But finally, the moment we've all been waiting for. We're back to the present where the action is hotter than a barbecue on a summer day, my friend. Bonnie's literally in Saturn's palm, saying it's all his fault. He's the one who made her dad suffer and lose his humanity. The soldiers point their guns at her, and Sanji's pissed because he's stuck. It's not just him. The other 2 weaklings are frozen too. Meanwhile, Luffy's about to pass out asking for food. Please, just a little piece of meat. Atlas says she would get him some but can't move because of the Gorosei's power. The Marines report that they've captured Vegapunk's bodyguard, and poor Sentomaru, aka Big Mac, got beat up before being captured. Kizaru's also face down on the ground, totally immobilized. Looking straight into Bonnie's eyes, Saturn says her dad is dead. He already became a statistic. The Marine HQ wants to know what's happening, but the regular soldiers have no clue. Only the Commodore level can enter the island. Over in frozen Let It Go land, people are reading the news and can't believe the new Yonkou has Vegapunk hostage. They're saying there's no way this ends without some blood being spilled. In another country, they're saying Egghead is even more surrounded than Ohara was, and they're wondering if Dr. Vegapunk is okay. Back at the Revolutionary Army base, Dragon asks where Kuma would go if he had any control over his body. The Funko Pop head guy says if it were him, he'd attack Mary Joie without hesitation. But Kuma? Nah, he'd go somewhere else. Saturn says it's time for Bonnie to meet her dad in the afterlife. The soldiers get ready to fire, and everyone's freaking out. But Bonnie tells him to screw off, and says if she's going down, she's taking him with her. She uses a distorted future of Nika. Saturn can't believe his ears when he hears it. He's even more shocked when those giant arms land right in his face. And even more shocked when Bonnie's attack fails and doesn't even tickle him. The bastard starts squeezing her harder, saying she only knows Nika's name because she's Kuma's daughter, but she has no clue what Nika really is. He says she still hasn't connected Nika with the white version of the Straw Hat Pirates, and calls her dumb as a rock. Meanwhile, Luffy's stuffing his face with Happy Meal toy, eating the toy that comes with the meal. Saturn asks who gave him food, and the soldiers are like, not us. So that crusty geezer ordered them to slap some sea stone cuffs on Luffy as soon as possible. Up above, Bonnie was trying everything, but she could not even change the Gorosei's age. And the old demon just laughed, saying she could not touch him because he was the one who gave her that power in the first place. The shock hit her so hard her nose started bleeding like she just read the plot of Attack on Titan. He explains it was all just a little science fair project. They tested if they could give a devil fruit power to a literal baby using fruit extract. Turns out, the age fruit was a hit, but totally useless in his opinion. What really matters, he says, is the power to transform into any possible future version of herself. Then this crusty lizard starts mocking her for believing Nika is real. But Bonnie snaps, screaming that he is real. She's been searching for Nika ever since her dad got turned into a walking USB drive. But Saturn says her being this weak only proves she is starting to doubt Nika exists at all. Her dad also believed in that fairy tale one, even said he wanted to save people like Nika. And as if that was not evil enough, this guy casually drops that he did drug experiments on her mother too. Bonnie's heart is beating like it is about to call it quits. Then suddenly, boom! A meteor crashes onto the island, blowing everything up like the season finale of an action anime. Bonnie keeps crying, saying all of this is Saturn's fault. Vegapunk loses it and asks if all this pain was really just one of his sick experiments. The old man cannot believe Saturn had the nerve to offer Kuma a deal to save his daughter, as if he was not the one who caused all of it in the first place. But Saturn, full of himself as always, tells Vegapunk to walk a mile in his boots. Would he care about the emotions of bugs? Trash has no rights in his eye. He stomps the ground like a toddler having a tantrum. and says garbage is not worth sympathy. Meanwhile, that meteor, it was Daddy of the Year landing in style. The Marines are panicking. Was that a pacifista? But nope, this one has bear paws. That was the real Bartholomew Kuma. He blasts a Kamehameha that deletes a whole building like it owed him money. A soldier screams that the southeast coast of Egghead is under attack by ex-warlord Kuma. Everyone is losing their mind, and Vegapunk asks what Kuma is doing here. Saturn, the cocky lizard that he is, says there is nothing to worry about. Kuma cannot possibly be there. Yeah, okay, keep telling yourself that, Cupcake. This Gorosei goon is about to meet the real definition of fear. Bonnie is so scared, she cannot even hear what anyone is saying. Doberman orders everyone to open fire to stop Kuma from reaching the center of the island. They launch cannonballs straight into his back, but the dude does not stop. He is marching like a tank, ignoring bullets like they are mosquito bites. He nearly falls, but then he hears Bonnie crying, and suddenly he finds strength in places he did not even know existed. He starts body slamming everyone in his path like a one-man demolition squad. Saturn, annoyed that she is still alive, decides to finish Bonnie off for good. He tells the Marines to aim straight for her chest, while the others scream at them to stop. But just in time, Kuma arrives like a bear-shaped angel of death, blasting anyone who points a weapon at his daughter. Saturn tosses Bonnie to the ground like yesterday's leftovers. She sobs, saying even after all that, she is still going to die. She apologizes for not being strong enough. Then Saturn winds up his leg for the big stomp, but Kuma slides in like a linebacker and takes the hit straight to the back to protect Bonnie. She is crying her eyes out, not sure whether to scream or hug him. Saturn cannot believe what he is seeing. He rips Kuma's claws off and blasts him again, but the bear grabs the shot midair, and the impact makes Saturn drop his cane like an old man tripping over a Lego. He asks Vegapunk how this is even possible. Kuma was supposed to be dead. Kuma glares at him and remembers every single moment of pain. His entire family enslaved, everything he loved taken from him, but he is still alive, still standing, still fighting for the one person he can still protect. Saturn says he should be scrap metal. After all, when the Revolutionary Army rescued him, they activated his self-destruct protocol. But look at him now, alive and kicking. And with all that pain built up inside, he throws one punch fueled by every ounce of rage he's carried for decades. And that hit sends Saturn flying like he just got launched out of the One Piece universe. Everyone is stunned. Bonnie is sobbing. Kuma's punch was so strong, it sent Saturn flying and knocked down a bunch of buildings. They came crashing down on that fool, squashing him like a pancake. The crew was absolutely stunned, unable to believe their eyes, and the Marines were just as shocked because he literally just punched one of the most powerful authorities in the world. This punch made Luffy's smack on the Celestial Dragon look like child's play. After that, Kuma collapsed to his knees, and the soldiers rushed to rescue Saturn. Bonnie kept crying, but the Straw Hats could finally move again. They rushed to take Bonnie, but Sanji told them to stop, because even though Kuma was all stiff, he managed to move just enough to get to his daughter. But the worst part was when Sanji realized the FBI could be knocking on his door any moment now, because now he knew Bonnie was actually a kid. Kuma hugged her, and Frankie was out here competing with the girl to see who could cry more. Vegapunk was completely lost because he had installed a self-destruct device on Kuma, and once the switch was flipped, he should have been completely immobilized like a vegetable, and even science couldn't explain it. He says it's not physical strength that makes pirates special. Meanwhile, Kizaru was finally getting back on his feet, and Sentomaru, all battered up, was happy Kuma made it. But the soldiers were freaking out because they couldn't find Luffy anywhere. They didn't know how to report that he'd just dipped. After that, Kuma was completely powered down, and Bonnie thanked him for everything he did. She knew everything because she saw his memory, all the happy and sad moments he lived. With a waterfall of tears in her eyes, she said how happy she was to see him again. She said her mother was an incredible woman. She supported him all the way and would throw hands with anyone who messed with him. He was a bit of a doofus for rejecting Ginny when she asked him to marry her, but she knew it was all for her own good. And now Bonnie knew that Kuma never stopped thinking about her for a second. She also knew he wrote her several letters. They never arrived because of that rat Alpha. He wrote about everything he did while traveling the world and how impressed he was with Dr. Vegapunk's inventions. He couldn't wait to go on an adventure with her. The girl hugged him, saying that even though everyone calls him a tyrant, he's the kindest person in the world, and she promised she'd never forget that. Meanwhile, the Marines were still trying to dig up Saturn. He started releasing such monstrous energy that it sent everyone flying. The crew was in shock because they thought the Gorosei was a goner, ready to be printed on a t-shirt. But then Saturn crawled out in his Spider-Man form and landed like a Marvel hero. But let's be real, this old old man was no hero. His arm got ripped off, and even that fool couldn't regenerate anymore. He asks Vegapunk if it was him who did this, but the old man says it was the power of love. The horned guy says this is just a mistake and starts regenerating again. His horn gets all shiny and his arm is good as new. The backyard chef asks how his body regenerated so fast. Now that the Gorosei was all good, he says he doesn't need Kuma anymore and starts throwing his claws at him again. But Sanji comes in with a kick to stop that old bearded dude. Frankie shouts that Kuma helped them out a bunch of times. He then readies a laser beam to blow that bum away. But Kizaru stands up and says they've really grown. The giant robot stabs Saturn and tells him to go to hell. But Borsalino pops up behind him, saying, "Show me how strong you've got," and kicks him right in the face, sending him to the ground like a pigeon turd. Bonnie says Kuma isn't moving, and Vegapunk tells Atlas to carry him to the lab. She carries him on her back, and Applehead says he'll take care of Saturn. They should focus on Bonnie and Kuma. Kizaru asks if they're going to let them escape, but Saturn doesn't care. Vegapunk calls him a coward because he doesn't have the guts to finish him off. He even calls him Borsalino and remembers when they used to have fun as best friends. On the ship, Doberman listens to Saturn's order to punish those who defy the world government. In other words, he's calling in a full-on buster call. This island was deemed a threat to the government, and it's about to get a destruction call to wipe everything out. But this time, they wouldn't have to wait for the ships to arrive because they were already surrounding Egghead. They were ready to burn the entire island to the ground with not even a single soul left alive. Vegapunk freaks out when he hears the buster call. Saturn says that those who study the world's secrets, those who carry the blood of a lost race, and those who awakened an ancient god must be completely obliterated. The buster call was finally activated. Vegapunk asks Saturn to cancel the order because this island is the future of humanity. The Marines were running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to evacuate the island, and they wanted to know what the heck was happening at the center of the island to cause this madness. Meanwhile, the crew was hauling Kuma on Atlas's back. Vegapunk kept insisting, but then the doll girl interrupted. She told Saturn and Kizaru to get to their ships because the island was about to turn into a war zone, but the horned guy said they were staying until everything was ready. He then ordered the bombardment to start, and the doll girl was like, "You've got to be kidding me." Kizaru told her to leave if she didn't want to end up as a pancake. Vegapunk asked if they were really going to solve everything by just killing him. After all, Egghead houses some of the most incredible scientific discoveries. Destroying the island would wipe out a century's worth of scientific progress, and he begged Kizaru, who could barely look him in the eye. Saturn asked if Vegapunk was still hiding something from them, and he said they didn't need that progress. Vegapunk begged again for the sake of humanity, but the jerk said he forgot to mention the ship that escaped from the island yesterday. He'd already ordered his soldiers to chase them down and destroy them, because there might be someone who knows about the Void Century on that ship. And to make sure no one survived, he sent a warship to turn them into chopped meat. Vegapunk lost it because those people were innocent and didn't know anything. But Saturn said they were complicit, just like the people of Ohara. They broke the law and got what they deserved. So all of them, along with the island, deserve to be wiped out. What a nice guy Saturn is, huh? Just setting humanity back. The ships were almost ready to fire. The Straw Hats took the opportunity to escape through the vacuum rocket while Vegapunk distracted the ace. Bonnie asked what would happen to Vegapunk, but Sanji told her not to worry because he'd go fetch the old man. He then called Nami to check on things. He explained that Saturn triggered that damn buster call. Chopper and Usopp were freaking out, saying they couldn't take any more of these destruction calls. Imagine Robin, who's about to get her third one, considering she already survived one when she was 8. Chopper told her to keep resting, and Nami asked if Luffy was down there. Sanji didn't know where he was, but figured he was fine. And Zoro was still fighting Rob Lucci. Jinbei went to help Zoro so he wouldn't get lost on the way back. The problem is, they couldn't use the Vega Force to take them to the sea anymore. Kizaru destroyed it, but then she said that Brook had an idea to escape. Meanwhile, Brook was cracking up, saying that carrying a ship on land was nothing for him. Lilith said he was a genius, because this way they'd reach the exit super fast, since he froze the clouds to make the ship slide. But then she asked how they would stop the ship, and Brook looked like he was caught in headlights. He took a hit when he admitted he hadn't thought of that part. She screamed that they were going to crash if they didn't do something. Meanwhile, the ships kept surrounding the island, and Doberman said the barrier was still up. So he gave the order for the ships to destroy the central factory and Egghead City. And finally, the terrible buster call began. It was bullets, punches, and explosions everywhere, and the city started being completely obliterated. Meanwhile, Luffy kept stuffing his face, eating like a hippo. The soldiers ask if that's the Straw Hat and order them to capture the Yonko, but they get blasted by cannonballs before they can do anything. But bombs just keep coming, and the soldiers are screaming to wait because they haven't even run yet. To make things worse, there were pacifistas shooting their laser beams that were setting the city on fire. Vegapunk can only watch in despair as everything he worked for gets destroyed right before his eyes. He can't believe all his effort is being thrown down the drain, and there's nothing he can do. The future of humanity is doomed, and his dreams are shattered. Saturn orders Kizaru to do what needs to be done, and holding back his tears, he walks towards Vegapunk to execute the guy. Sanji shows up, asking what the hell Vegapunk is still doing here. Atlas's group was escaping on the vacuum rocket, but, of course, good things never last, because Kizaru suddenly appears beside them and whips them with a laser beam, slicing their ship in half. The crew flies off, and Sanji speeds off, yelling he's going to save Bonnie. The rest of them can just figure it out. Saturn tells the pacifistas that the targets are Bonnie and Kuma. They prepare missiles to exterminate them both, but the pacifistas recognize Bonnie and hesitate. The real Kuma grabs Bonnie mid-air, and Saturn laughs, saying this is so ironic, because Kuma sacrificed himself to save Bonnie, and now his own clone is going to kill her. He says it's a fitting end for these insects. Vegapunk watches Bonnie fall and says that when he found out she had become a pirate, he shook in his boots because he knew a horrible future was waiting for her. One day, the pacifistas with her father's face might be ordered to execute her, but outside, the Marines failed to destroy the escaping researchers. Their ships were completely obliterated. In their last breaths, one of them sends a message to Kizaru saying that someone is heading straight for Egghead. Egghead Island was getting totally wrecked, and out of nowhere, Toei threw in some fucking 3D into the anime. But hey, we're rolling with it. I was this close to exploding at home with all that quality. The Marines pointed their little piercing toys at Luffy in whale mode, and he just tells them to try their luck if they think they stand a chance. The kid starts snoring like a motorcycle and does a super digestion move that instantly snaps his body back to normal. And the chubby guy is already trying to learn how to eat that much without gaining a pound, just sitting there wondering where all the food went. Suddenly, bombs started raining down where they were. Luffy grins, and the guys were getting swallowed by the flame. Someone asked where the Straw Hat went, and all they got was laughter along with the drums of freedom. The Marine says even though he's a Yonko, they have the numbers. So the three of them were going to grab him with Kairoseki together. They pulled out their handcuffs, but before they could finish counting, the ground started bouncing like a trampoline. Everyone got thrown into the air and ran straight into the kid cosplaying as Jack Frost, sprayed all that white powder in his hair, but let's be honest, it looked like he snorted a bit too. He's bouncing around like a 5-year-old, and the soldiers who were full of courage just moments ago take the chance to leg it. Back on the ships, they kept launching cannonballs at the island, and I cannot handle this CGI. It goes from 3D to 2D in 1 second. At the center, Vegapunk watches the crew falling from the sky like pigeon poop. He calls Atlas with his walkie-talkie to save Bonnie and Kuma. The rest of them can just figure it out. Saturn orders the pacifistas to shoot them, and Sanji's climbing in slow motion to rescue the girl. Atlas reaches Bonnie and tells her to listen carefully. The girl makes a weird face but follows instructions, turning to the pacifistas and ordering them not to shoot and to help them escape the island. Nobody understood a thing, and the soldiers on the coast swear they heard something. Then, just like that, the pacifistas obey and turn their lasers on the Navy ships. The game literally flipped in 5 seconds, and now all the Marine weapons are pointing at themselves. They sent a Kamehameha that blew up the ships, and that 3D wooden stick nearly shot through my computer screen. Vegapunk breathes a sigh of relief as it works, and the vessels start getting wrecked one by one. The old man says his only fear is that Bonnie ends up as dust at her father's hands. There is no way he could let that happen. That's why he programmed all the Kuma Pacifista clones to obey Bonnie, with a control chip even more authoritative than the Gorosei themselves. That way, Kuma would always be on her side. But then Saturn stabs him in the back with those sharp claws. He tries to cosplay Ace with a hole in his stomach, but Saturn is blind as a bat and hits his chest instead. Everyone goes nuts, and Bearded Hornhead orders Kizaru to wipe them out immediately. Borsalino teleports in, raining shots that leave them like a colander full of holes. Sanji launches himself at the Admiral with a flying kick, but he dodges, saying he's going to cut those two in half. He tells Bonnie not to worry though. It will be fast and painless. The egg fryer activates turbo mode, running at 300 miles per hour. But it's too late. All they hear is a maniacal laugh and a giant fist barreling in, smashing Kizaru like a bullet train. The lantern guy kissed the ground, and Luffy grabbed his arm. This kid is so insane he lands that punch straight from the floor while bouncing around like a flea. He's like, now that my stomach is full, I am going all out, 100% power. He turns the entire island into a giant bouncing playground that just will not stop dancing. Saturn is totally confused because the ground looks like jelly and the kid is hopping from side to side like a frog. The crew falls from above, but instead of splatting on the floor, they land perfectly fine. And they're still right in front of the big boss, who just told Vegapunk to take a nap. The soldiers are so distracted by the bouncing island, they totally forget they are being blasted with bazookas. Kizaru gets up from that hit, and Bonnie runs straight to the old man with the apple head. She's relieved he's still breathing and yells for everyone to get out of there. But Saturn the Horned tells them not to waste their time because bugs always meet the same fate. Out of nowhere, a beat drops that shocks everyone. Luffy fires up his JBL, blasting a wicked pagodown beat that even wakes Emeth from his 200-year beauty sleep. Bonnie hears the song and immediately remembers Nika's dance her father taught her, the same one they used to do together every night. Kuma says that one day Nika would show up, cracking up and shaking that booty. Vegapunk asks if she still hadn't realized, but even he wasn't sure until he saw it with his own eyes. The Straw Hat Luffy that Kuma had protected so fiercely was none other than Nika, the sun god. And when Bonnie sees the kid striking that pose, there's no more doubt. She starts crying because Kuma was right the whole time. Vegapunk says that this Buster Call is useless. People from all over the world have been waiting for this for centuries. Meanwhile, a massive ship is heading to Egghead. The Navy ships are falling one by one with nothing they can do. The lookout warns something is approaching, but it is not a sea beast weapon. They come face to face with a colossal ship and rush to alert all troops. The shields and Viking banners erase any doubt anyone could have had. Everyone thought these guys had disappeared over 100 years ago, but this ship is only massive because its crew members are even bigger. They are about to plow through every Navy troop gathered, bomb raining down, but the cannonballs barely scratch the boat. They ask what the hell these giants are doing here, and from above, none other than the giant warriors Dory and Brogy jump down, playing seesaw and sending those weak soldiers flying. They draw their weapons and destroy those warships like they're toy boats. Brogy says they came for the Straw Hat. Dory is hyped to see the sun god. Now the brawl is about to go full throttle, my dude. The Marines bolted in panic as soon as they saw the giants. Brogy smashed the ground with his axe and sent those guys flying like action figures. The two of them jumped onto Egghead Island, shouting that they came for the Straw Hat. Their crew showed up right after, running over the Navy and storming the island. And they told them to take care of the annoying ships around the island. Kashi and Oimo took charge and charged forward, smashing the ships like they were little toy boats. The Navy soldiers were freaking out, asking why all these ancient giant warriors were on this island. They tried firing cannonballs to stop them, but another ship got obliterated before it even had a chance. The warriors were slicing warships one by one, turning into the ultimate nightmare for every troop. From up in the clouds, Usopp was spotting the giants and screaming that the masters had arrived. But with that size, he didn't even need binoculars to see them, right? He was worried, thinking he'd never see them again, even if they went back to Elbaf. He remembered when the whole world feared the giant pirates. But they split up because of a fight between the two captains, Dory and Brogy. The Straw Hats met them in Little Garden in the middle of that battle. It had been going on for so long, they even forgot what started it. Usopp said he wanted to be a brave sea warrior like them. Oimo and Kashi had met them back when they were gatekeepers at Eni's lobby for 50 years, and now they were all gathered on Egghead to help the crew escape this nightmare. Edson could not believe they had such strong allies. He said they must have come after reading the government news, and now everyone was getting ready to make a run for it. Nami asked where Brook was, but could only hear Lilith screaming. The skeleton said to chill. He was coming with the Sunny. He was totally relaxed, not even thinking about how to stop the ship. Lilith screamed that if they fell off the island, they'd crash into the barrier and blow up. Meanwhile, Zoro was locked in a fight to the death with Rob Lucci, and Jinbei was flying like a manatee to help the swordsman. Zoro told Tigger to stop bugging him because he was in a hurry, but the little punk said only the winner gets to say that. He lunged again with those sharp claws, claiming he heard the swordsman was a burden slowing down his crew. Zoro dodged a kick and blocked the maniac ready to slice someone. Lucci said they were a bunch of idiots who couldn't leave a single member behind. So as long as the mop head is breathing, the Straw Hats will stay trapped here. But his logic is completely whack, right? Because if by some miracle he killed Zoro, the Straw Hats would challenge the devil himself for revenge. Down below, over 30 Navy ships had already been sunk. Vice Admiral Red King ordered the smaller and medium ships to fall back, leaving only the warships to push forward. He ordered them to shoot the pacifists, but he couldn't believe they had to attack their own guns. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, two crazy maniacs were just chilling. Yep, Van Augur and Katarina Devon lost in the woods like nothing was happening and thinking about how to to spice up this fight even more. In the center, Bonnie could not believe her eyes. Luffy asked why she was crying like a total baby. And of course, she said she was crying because she had been looking for him all this time. Luffy asks if she hit her head since he was with her the whole time, but she says she did not know he was Nika. The kid had no clue what she was talking about, and she tells him she always wanted to throw rubber punches like him. Then he remembers that embarrassing moment from earlier when she barely tapped Saturn, but she screams that she wants to see the real punches since he is the big boss, and she tells him to punch that old bearded guy in the face to get back at Vegapunk. Luffy is totally confused, and his eyes practically popped out when he saw the scientist on the ground with a hole in his chest. Saturn says these bugs deserve nothing but death, but Luffy disagrees and says he will get everyone off this island, telling Bonnie to learn how to throw a real punch. He was about to unleash a massive beatdown until Saturn fired an invisible haki shot that stopped him. But of course, he did not give up and spun back like a helicopter, asking what the heck he was doing hurting his friend. He unleashed a rubber dawn machine gun that scraped Saturn's face, rained down a storm of punches that slammed into the miserable villain's face, and Bonnie just watched the Liberator warrior who was going to save this world someday. The Gorosei was almost turning into a pancake from all the punches he had taken. Luffy finished him off with a crushing punch loaded with haki, sending Saturn flying backwards while doing a Michael Jackson moonwalk, and after wrecking that trash across the buildings, he laughed like nothing happened. Atlas screams that this is their chance to escape. She told Bonnie to activate her float mode and fly over the island. The girl asked Vegapunk to come with them, but the old man told her to go ahead, because he is a medical expert and knew that moving now would kill him. But Kizaru shows up again saying he will die even without moving, and fires a deadly laser to kill two birds with one stone. But the Friar of Fate arrives with a once-in-20 years move and blocked that Raduken with a simple kick. Borsalino is jaw-dropped, and Frankie even more, screaming that it was a laser beam. Sanji says he does not care because love is stronger than light, and I just hope all that love is for Vegapunk, or you better get ready to turn into a softie in jail, my friend. Kizaru says if that were true, physics would not exist. The Supreme Cattle tells Frankie not to let Bonnie get hurt, and to get out of there while he handles the lantern guy. Bonnie did not want to go without Vegapunk, but the old man said she needs to go with Kuma, and they fly off toward the northeast coast. Luffy starts cracking up while bouncing, telling Sanji that this was insane. Kizaru says he will lose face if he leaves without the heads of the two, but the Egg Friar says he just has to write an apology to the Navy, and it is all good. Saturn was buried under the rubble, and Katarina asks if he is not one of the 5 elders. She asked what kind of power that was, and said she had never seen an elder descend personally to the lower world, but that was a huge help. She put her hand on his leg and said the mission was complete. Saturn asks why they are here. He never imagined that the level 6 impel down savages would be someone's pawns, but she says Teach is special, just like her lineage. The bearded guy says they are always plotting evil plans and asks again what they want. Van Augur's answer? Nothing less than the world. Saturn tries to crush them, but the two bounce away. After all, the mission was already complete. Now that she touched down, she could transform into one of the highest authorities in the world. Big Nose asks if Augur could not have teleported them farther from the island, but he says he is still training. But behind them was undoubtedly one of the ugliest characters in the anime. Caribou was crying his eyes out and begging them to wait. He said he never expected to see these two legends here, Van Augur the Supersonic and Katarina Devon the Crescent Moon Hunter. He said he went to the sea with the dream of being like them. His dream is to be one of Teach's men, the terrible Blackbeard, and he begged them to let him see the captain. Caribou says he is hyped to finally meet Blackbeard's pirates. He's been waiting for this moment his whole life. Says there's something Teach is gonna love knowing. So if they introduce him to the captain, they'll earn some brownie points with the big guy. But Augur points that weird poking device at him, and the slimy dude freaks out, saying he's not their enemy and that this meeting is fate. The sniper wants to know what a pirate like him is doing on a world government island. He says the captain has tons of assassins on his tail, but Caribou swears he is not one of them. Adds that if they kill him now, Teach will smash their faces in, and that only makes Augur more pumped to pull the trigger. He claims to have info no one else has, but Katarina says it's just a bluff from some idiot trying to save his own skin. Yet he is certain this info will shake the whole world. It's about the ancient weapons named after the old gods. One of them is Poseidon, the power of Princess Shirahoshi, and the other is Pluton, hidden somewhere in Wano. Probably. Only he and the Straw Hats know where these insane weapons are. Van Augur asks what he knows. Of course, he cannot spill it here. Says if they let him meet Teach, he'll hand over everything. Meanwhile, off the coast, a massive war rages between the pacifistas and the Navy ships. Ships keep getting blown up one by one. Sailors try to fight back, but the pacifistas' bubble shields are so strong they laugh off cannonballs. The Navy tries to retreat, but the pacifistas show no mercy, blasting lasers that annihilate annihilate everything. Vice Admiral Doberman orders the ships to pull back from the shore. They had zero chance against these giant robots, and Egghead will be impossible to take if they do not regain control. Other Vice Admirals start whining that nothing but disaster ever happens on this island. They want to cancel the Buster Call now that the giants are on Egghead. But Guillotine says Vegapunk gave the pacifistas authority to a pirate. That means they gotta make the old man suffer and regret betraying the world government. So the new plan is to regain control of the pacifista. And for that, they need to take out the pirate jewelry Bonnie. Vice Admiral Tosa is already racing toward them, trying to get close enough to take out the girl. They notice the Marine getting close and push the Dom boots to max power. But Frankie is not used to this speed and almost faceplants straight into the dirt. After flying like a confused cockroach, he regains control and has to zigzag between the trees so he does not become a woodpecker. Tosa is more of a brute and wants to prove he is no soft punch. He starts smashing trees like a raging bear, and if he does this to a thick tree, imagine what he would do to tiny Bonnie. He says his claws are 10 shiggins that can tear through even armor. Finally, he gets close and goes in for a Tosa bite ready to crush the poor girl. But at the last second, a massive axe falls right on him. Everyone is confused and just sees Broggy and Dory grinning like a couple of maniacs, are in shock asking what the giants are doing on this island. They are already pressed for time and more enemies show up. Broggy asks who they are. He checked the wanted posters for the new members but does not recognize any of them. So they ask if they are Egghead workers. Dory says they came because of the straw hat, and Frankie asks what they could possibly have against his captain. But the giant replies they hold nothing but gratitude. They are warriors from Elbaf, so if they are Luffy's allies, they will protect them at all costs. Other giants show up, saying they are all on the same side. Frankie loses it because he was about to soil his pants from sheer terror. Broggy apologizes, saying it is all his fault. The giants burst out laughing. Bonnie jumps in to say that Luffy, Sanji, and Vegapunk are still in the center of the island. She asks if they can help, and Big Mac says of course they can. So the crew hops a ride with the giants to their ship. Blackbeard tells them to leave everything to the captains, and Frankie asks if these are the masters Usopp is always talking about. Meanwhile, at sea, the Vice Admirals are furious they lost contact with Tosa. They speculate he was either defeated or ran into a giant, which honestly is basically the same thing. Unless that Marine was Levi Ackerman, then the giant would be shaking in his boots. Pomsky was heading to the island and Bluegrass was coming by sea. Meanwhile, Doll's kitty flew and hitched a ride with the crusty old lady. If this woman did not have lungs black from smoking, I might even marry her. The old lady with dentures asks if she has ever fought a giant. Doll says her boss 20 years ago was a giant. Bluegrass adds that Saul was insanely strong back then. The giant who looked like a beaver asks where the rest of the crew is. When Frankie says they are in the lab above the clouds, the giant thinks they are in Skype. Up above, Saturn is a complete wreck. His body starts shaking, and he transforms into a Satan uglier than before. Wherever the spider lady walked, everything rotted. Luffy rushes to check if Vegapunk is okay, but the old man's heart is already close to retiring permanently. The kid says if the crown does not fight, they will not make it, but he would die for sure if he moved. Kizaru complains that they are nothing but headaches, and Sanji says it is time for him to go home and stop bothering everyone. But Saturn comes back looking like a Twitter feminist ready to cancel you. Luffy says he promised to help Apple Uncle escape the island, but Vegapunk says there is still something he needs to protect. He wants to tell Bonnie about her authority when she grows up, and he asks them to take care of her because her life is in extreme danger. Sanji notes Saturn looks less and less human. He realizes he is poisoning and rotting everything he touches. Gorosei aims at the two distracted people, and Sanji yells to watch out. He saves the old man before he is crushed to dust, but he cannot move much, or he will lose even more blood. Sanji dodges another attack, and Luffy gets ready to strike back. With two massive slaps, he claps and starts mocking Saturn. The guy flies into a rage, swinging at the kid in every direction. The captain orders Sanji to get the old man out. He blocks Gorosei, who was about to interfere, saying that this horned fool is no match for them. The horned villain goes full berserk, and Luffy dodges every blow while laughing at him, making Saturn look like a fool while the two escape. Vegapunk says that is enough, but Sanji tells him to shut up, and he takes a boot right to the face to teach him a lesson. The old man flies back, and the pub cook realizes things just got serious, because Kizaru plunged his sword into Vegapunk's back, leaving a massive hole in his chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Sanji and Luffy scream in panic, and his vital signs start dropping fast. Luffy orders Sanji to get Vegapunk to the other side of the island, and with an even bigger hole in his chest, the old man is hanging by a thread. Borsalino is already on their tail, but Luffy is not having it. He starts growing massive while yelling at them, calling them a bunch of miserable jerks. He grabs Kizaru midair with his right hand, dodges dodges a massive blow and snatches the horned guy's head, making those two punks truly feel the wrath of a Yonko when he is pissed. He starts crushing them, yelling that they are going nowhere. Vegapunk starts laughing at the kid putting the big guys in their place. In his last words, he says there will be nothing left for the weaklings. His heart finally stops, and Sanji screams like a madman. He tells him to hold on and asks why he is smiling. But then a broadcast starts rolling across the entire world. He introduces himself as Dr. Vegapunk, a humble and genius scientist, and he says the message he is about to leave will shock the entire world. It is none other than the hidden truth of the world itself. Shaka says it is not smart to just blurt it out right away. People need to actually pay attention. The old man warns that the moment some sneaky journalist finds out, it will spread all over the world. But the giant robot says there is a chance they can manipulate the info. So they decided to stall a little before dropping the real bomb. They said these mind waves will broadcast worldwide, hacking the Navy's system and creating one massive transmission. The Marines tried to shut it down but could not stop it at all. The tavern cook is completely lost and asks why he is hearing Vegapunk's voice. Saturn and Kizaru are still trapped in Luffy's grip like flies in a spiderweb. Shaka says they need to wait until everyone can turn on their video Den Den Mushi, and Luffy spots the helmet dude, who says they will wait 1 hour so the whole world can get ready. Saturn is in shock, asking what they plan to reveal. Vegapunk says 1 hour is way too much time. Nami and Usopp start whining that while they are doing everything to escape, Vegapunk is just chatting away. But Chopper and Tinhead find it weird because they heard Shaka's voice even though he got shot by York. Not even Edison knew what the heck was happening. The giants marched through the forest with huge grins because something big was about to go down. They kept searching for the Straw Hat. The Marines joined up, and the giants called them a bunch of idiots. The soldiers fired and caused a massive explosion, but it did not even tickle these monstrous warriors. They hit back by smashing their axes into the ground and sending everyone flying, destroyed that human anthill in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, Vegapunk says he will give them 10 minutes to get ready. Innocent Luffy says, as usual, that Vegapunk and Shaka are still alive and kicking. Now it was time to wipe out those government trash. Over in Marijois, the Celestial Dragons wanted to know what kind of broadcast this was. St. Marcus asks what happened to Vegapunk. Saturn replies telepathically that Kizaru killed him, and he saw it with his own eyes. Topman El Bigodon says he could only have left a message programmed to trigger after his death. They needed to find the source of the broadcast as fast as possible. It had to be somewhere in Egghead's Laba Stratus, protected by a barrier. The only thing they knew is that if Vegapunk reveals the truth about the world, Imusama will shred them to bits. While waiting for the 10 minutes to pass, the old man goes to grab a coffee. In Dressrosa, the people start realizing something, saying that the famous Dr. Vegapunk is trying to reveal something to the world. Everyone rushed to the plaza to watch on their video Den Den Mushi. At this speed, the signal would barely make it before the speech ended. Rebecca arrives from training, ready to watch the broadcast. Leo and Kabu show up asking if this is the scientist Luffyland held hostage. But Rebecca tells him to stop being dumb because this is obviously government lies. Lucy would never do something so cowardly. Hiro says it looks like Vegapunk is speaking freely and on his own, so he is probably not being threatened by anyone. In Fuchsia Village, the people were also getting ready. They thought it would be about Luffy doing something bad again. They said this truth about the world thing is total nonsense, but they were still curious. The village is poor and could not even afford a video Den Den Mushi, so they would just listen on the radio. In Water 7, everyone started waking up in the middle of the night. Iceberg immediately tells his maid to get the video Den Den Mushi ready, but the girl was sharp and had already turned it on. She even set up screens at all the shipyards. In Morgan's magical balloon, Wapel Windhead is completely confused. The parrot explains that Vegapunk is broadcasting this using Navy tech. Vivi asks where Luffy and the others are, but Morgans calls her dumb and tells her to check the timestamp on the recording. This is not Egghead's current time, so these images must be pre-recorded. He says the place must already be worse than hell after a buster call, and he wants to make a headline about this story that will shake the world. Vivi can only pray that Luffy and the others get out alive. In West Blue, everyone is ready for the broadcast, saying this scientist is crazy for chopping off his head and sticking an Apple antenna on it. In North and South Blue, people are curious about what he wants to say to the whole world. world. And in the three-legged women's kingdom, they are drooling, calling Vegapunk the old man on the boat. Shaka says it will take 10 minutes to brew the coffee. But at this rate, nobody will even get a sip. Ivankov starts laughing at Vegapunk's head, which is way smaller than last time. Koala asks if these are the famous copies of the Doctor. Morley wants to know how he can broadcast this message while being held hostage. Sabo asks Dragon if Vegapunk will really reveal the truth about the world. The absentee dad remembers the conversation he had with Shaka months ago, saying he knew he would die soon, and he keeps thinking that is the only thing he has done since the anime started. For 28 years, Dragon has literally done nothing. No fighting, no escaping captivity, not even showing a little power to us. At Egghead, the giant beaver is almost there while carrying Frankie and the others, and the giant robot is stunned when he comes face to face with the warrior's ship from Elbaf. That was Great Irek, and they would set sail as soon as the bosses returned. Bonnie is worried, asking if Vegapunk will come back safe. He will, girl, trust him. The Gorosei are calmly watching the broadcast as if time is on their side. Luffy says that even after all those punches, the bearded guy is still intact. Borsalino tries to catch him off guard and shoots a laser from his eyes, but Luffy barely dodges and says that as long as his friends are not free, these two will go nowhere. He hits a Gomu Gomu no Donshibaru, sending Saturn and Kizaru flying with a massive kiss. Stuck together, this is the famous "till death do us part." They get so flattened they look like Aladdin's magic carpet. Luffy starts spinning them like pizza dough. He says that since the horned guy always recovers, this time he will send both of them to the ends of the world. He throws them to the moon and starts cracking up. The Marines see something coming toward them from afar. They take a Gomu Gomu no Kizaru right in the face as a warning. A whole warship explodes and Saturn is next, but the bastard regains control and heads back toward Luffy. Caught off guard, he almost has a heart attack from shock, asking why nothing can hurt this old rascal. Kizaru is just a limp coat on the deck, thinking back to the moment he had to stab Vegapunk. The Gorosei tell Saturn that time is running out. They cannot let Vegapunk reveal everything he knows. Luffy dodges all the Gorosei's assassination attempts that have now finally stopped spinning. He glares at Saturn, who looks even uglier, like a sick pig, and he begins the incantation. Out of nowhere, a blue flame and a pentagram appear on Egghead's ground, and they also appear in Mary Joie in front of the Gorosei. That fat butt better get off the couch and activate the world government's overpowered mode. Suddenly, the weather in Egghead flips and a sinister black lightning strikes. Luffy is shocked, asking what the heck is going on. Sanji says it looks exactly like when the old spider showed up. One demon was not enough, so now all 5 are coming to turn Egghead into a nightmare. The Marines were losing their minds. Old Suru saw those sinister black lightning bolts and screamed that it was over. These were the same freaky rays from when Saturn hit the island. Only this time, there was way too much lightning for one person to handle. A giant chonky dude launches a humongous arrow at one of the ships, causing massive destruction. The arrows were so heavy they might as well have been cannonballs. Another towering figure with doll-like hair leaps onto a ship to flex his axe up close for the Marine. Dory and Brogy stroll in laughing like maniacs, with a gaze so scary even the devil would flinch. Atlas yells that the lightning is coming from where Stella and the others are. Luffy yells, "Where the hell is this lightning coming from?" while dodging Saturn's horn attacks at the same time. 4 massive tornadoes spin around them, taking up half the battlefield. Sanji realizes the danger and tells Nami and the crew to run. Meanwhile, in Mary Joie, they've got the TV running, streaming Vegapunk's transmission. The old man explains that this is humanity's dream. Vega coffee, just a drop in your water and boom, instant hot coffee. He asks how much longer, and Shaka says, just 7 more minutes. Then we're live, because there's probably no one near Egghead to intercept the broadcast. Imagine if there was. Back on the battlefield, Luffy is dodging attacks while the lightning intensifies, shaping into beast-like forms. Luffy freaks out, screaming that now there are 5 monsters. He uses observation haki to figure out what the heck is happening, but he's never felt such monstrous presences. First, a chicken foot appears, then a horse hoof. The claws are sharp enough to split a mountain in half. It's officially a horror show on the island. Then the 5 elders make their entrance. Shepherd Jew Peter with his sandworm form. Ethan-born Nusjuro with his skeletal horse spirit. Topman Warcurry as a warthog straight out of Timon and Pumbaa. Marcus Mars with his toothy parrot form. And of course, the spider lady we've all seen way too much of. These are the 5 elders, the supreme authorities of the world, each packing ridiculously overpowered abilities. Their aura is so intense that Luffy is getting blasted backward, debris flying everywhere, barely dodging while scrambling for cover. He rockets through a wall, narrowly avoiding the toothy hen, almost getting squashed by the pig and skewered by Saturn. He rockets through the skeletal horse, which looks like Aaron's founding titan, and from underground, a massive worm bursts out, almost devouring him. The 5 Supreme World Government Elders are finally together on the battlefield for the first time. Luffy thinks, if this keeps up, he'll destroy the entire island. Time to deal with these maniacs. He pulls all the air from the ground and grows huge to level the playing field. But Saturn isn't messing around. He hits Luffy with a terrifying King's Haki that slams him into the ground like a pancake. The crazy horse uses its Haki to launch Luffy again, then jumps on him, going full speed berserker mode. Its target isn't Luffy. It's the pacifists who are wrecking the marine ships. The horse transforms into a centaur and slices a pacifist in half in the blink of an eye. The mech freezes and starts short-circuiting, and barely had the first one fallen when the second giant mech gets shredded too. The bald dude was losing it, smashing all the marine weapons that cost a fortune. The soldiers spot a giant horse, and suddenly it vanishes. Turns out it's already on the other side of the island finishing off the pacifists. Every battalion reports the cyborgs are offline, but the attacks happened so fast, no one understood what even went down. Then Nusturo finishes off the stragglers, freezing them from the inside out. In the center, the toothy parrot is completely hyped, flapping so hard that Luffy looks like Team Rocket blasting off at the speed of light. Sanji calls Nami's crew to explain the situation, but even he has no clue what's going on. All they know is there's no way they can win now. They need an emergency escape plan, like yesterday. Nami doesn't get why everyone's panicking. The marine doctors check the fallen pacifists and say their brain circuits got frozen, so they're only temporarily offline. With a strong ally on the field, they don't have to waste time fighting those giant bots anymore. Doberman says this is their shot to take out Bonnie. Meanwhile, Marcus Mars is flying full throttle toward the cloud line. Sanji screams for everyone to get moving because an ultra-dangerous monster is barreling straight at them. He almost got barbecued when a lightning bolt smacked right on top of them. Nami points out some people still haven't arrived and they hear a scream heading their way. It's Lilith and Brook coming in on a ship with 0 brakes. Everyone's panicking except the skeleton and Robin. Down below, Saturn complains that Nika is super annoying and goes back to try taking the kid out. He's faster than a Super Saiyan, hitting 20 punches per second, but Luffy's observation Haki is on point and he dodges every strike, even the sandworm that dropped straight on him. But the worm disappears, and Rubber Monkey asks if that was even a worm. The ground starts shaking, and suddenly, Jupiter slams a crater open in the ground, swallowing Gear 5 whole. The bald dude keeps freezing the cyborg systems, all powered by ChatGPT. Meanwhile, Seagull is up in the clouds, ready to wreck the lab. He charges in flames, slamming into the barrier with everything he's got. Usopp warns Sanji that Skeleton and Lilith have arrived. The ship is almost fully intact with 0 issues. Brook knew it would all work out, but Lilith kicks his butt, saying it's all thanks to God Usopp. He launched a Midori Bushi that grew a bamboo forest before the ship hit the barrier. Pinocchio says they really want out of there, but Zoro and Jinbei haven't arrived yet. The Fishman says he's almost there. The battle isn't over, but he's gonna drag Zoro in. I want to see him jump into this mess without turning into tuna tartare. Tiger Boy is full-on raging, and Zoro even more so. Rob Lucci lands a storm kick so strong it splits the forest trees in half. Mid-air, he runs into a strike from Zoro and has to tank it with his iron body. Zoro blasts into infinity, ready to shred some jaguar meat, but suddenly a sinister presence shows up and shocks them both. They're wondering where the hell it came from. They pull back to gain speed and strike again, but that monstrous aura returns and terrifies them both. Zoro's Enma even takes flight because now it identifies as a bird, and by now you know whose monstrous Haki that is, right? And no, surprisingly, it's not Jinbei. Rob Lucci says he's sure Zoro felt that Haki too, because it was spreading all over the island, and right after, they're back to trying to chop each other's heads off. After searching forever, Jinbei finally finds them. Zoro charges with blood in his eyes at insane speed, punching a hole through the sky like it's nothing. They're moving so fast, it's basically impossible to follow. But then Sanji drops a Discord message that Zoro's slowing everyone down and is just dead weight. That went straight into Zoro's ears, and he went full-on berserk, because getting called dead weight by a fried pastry chef is one of the ultimate humiliations ever. Tiger Boy struts toward him, activating his power. He unleashes a terrifying aura and hits with a Shigan. Actually, multiple Shigans, spawning a bunch of hands and raining blows like a Shoryuken storm. But Zoro dodges everything like it's in slow-mo, eyes closed, just to flex his superiority. He zigzags, jumps off a rock, and fires a Santoryu Kokoba. Madara Gari! Rob Lucci freezes, stunned by the sheer force. It's like Zoro turned into a demigod overnight. He slices Lucci up like he's making an exotic jaguar coat. Even Jinbei's jaw drops at all that raw power. He had no idea there was a demon king in the crew. Meanwhile, Luffy's inside Jupiter's stomach, almost getting swallowed whole. He stretches his arm out, the jaws almost closing, nearly stuck, but the monster gulped down his backside super fast, He wriggles free. He yells at the worm monster that it tastes terrible, but just as he thinks maybe it might taste okay, Saturn grabs him and spins him like a hula hoop. Now he's getting revenge for what the kid did to him and Kizaru, slamming Luffy into Pumbaa's attack. Luffy gets dizzy and ends up back inside Jew Peter's mouth. This old dude is way too hungry for Luffy. Seriously. Finally, help arrives. Dory and Brogy show up grinning, saying they saw a familiar face. They declare that a dark place doesn't suit this man and rush to help the Straw Hat. Dory blocks Saturn's swings and throws him back, while Brogy smashes Topman's face. They grab the horns of each of these horned dudes and slam them together, landing a double beefcake smack. Bro code is at an all-time high. The two giants rush in because Jew Peter's the next target, using a sunsaw to decapitate the Gorosei and yank Luffy out by force. The kid pops out, cracking up, shocked to see the old giants. They say they couldn't just sit around and had to see the Straw Hat. Luffy's grinning so hard he's blushing. Now these three are about to wreck these half-baked Gorosei. Marcus Mars was flying across the island, radiating that monstrous haki. Jinbei shouted, "What the heck is that?" The beast was radiating pure rage, so they had to get out of there, fast. He went to grab Zoro, shouting it was time to go, but the swordsman wasn't having it. He said the fight wasn't over yet because the tiger was still alive and breathing. Problem was, he was barely standing and was spitting strawberry juice everywhere. Sanji asked if Jinbei had managed to get the mossy-haired guy out of the fight, but Rob Lucci was already ready for round two. The fishman grabbed Zoro, saying, "You already won." Lucci kept crawling forward, and Jinbei apologized for the chaos, then hit him with a water-powered karate strike so strong it sliced trees in half. Lucci even reverted back to human form, jaw dropping when he saw a giant flying chicken barreling straight at him. He asked the CP0 agent where York was. Zoro couldn't even process the size of this monster. Lucci reported York was trapped in the control room on the 4th floor. The two escapees? That was Roronoa Zoro and Jinbei, the Sea Knight. Up above, 5 more Straw Hats and 2 Vegapunks were prepping to sneak out the back. There were also 85 Cypher Paul agents and 4 Seraphim trapped in the basement, and only 6 minutes before Vegapunk's broadcast. The beast approached, impressed, saying the agent was truly remarkable. No further questions. But as the Gorosei started leaving, Lucci spoke up, asking if his friend inside could be spared. The parrot replied that isolating one bug is impossible when you're about to wipe out the whole hive. Meanwhile, Luffy was yelling that it had been over 2 years since he'd seen the giants. The big guys barely recognized him in this form. They'd heard tales of this god of Elbaf and wanted to know where he got that Nika outfit. The kid had no clue. And they had bigger problems to deal with before having a chat. Saturn muttered that these giants were going to be a real problem. Dory noted the monsters looked just like those from Elbaf. Luffy said they didn't have time to fight. They had to escape, but the bearded guy told him to chill. Sanji had already explained everything. The message got through. The crew would regroup on the other side of the island. The giants said they came to help the Straw Hats after reading the papers, especially seeing them trapped by the Marines. The kid had no idea about this news. When he heard he'd gotten villain fame for kidnapping Vegapunk, he laughed his head off. Time to get back to the ship. Dory sounded a giant trumpet that echoed across the island, so powerful even the ships were shaking. Olmo reported that the bosses had spotted the Straw Hats, ordering everyone back to the ship. The other giants laughed at the Marines. They were only there to save the Straw Hats anyway, since there was no treasure to plunder on these ships. Topman noticed the escape signal and said he wouldn't let it slide, and decided to play a little tune for them. He inhaled so hard through his nose, it felt like he sucked all the oxygen out of the room, then let out a terrifying scream packed with haki. Luffy was dodging like crazy, but buildings started exploding and catching fire. The Marines were in shock. Those black lightning strikes were back. The King's haki was so absurd. Even the weaklings fainted 2 kilometers away. Even the giants had to hold themselves back or risk flying away. Luffy was laughing midair, his body starting to fall apart like Mr. Potato Head from Toy Story. The giants were stunned, and Dory planted his sword to hold Luffy together. This was just plain bizarre. The kid started sticking all the pieces back together like some kind of sticker album. Brogy asks if he's okay because he looked like a jigsaw puzzle, but he says he's all good, and Dory cracks up, saying his body is just plain ridiculous. Still, that King's haki roar was dangerous. The boar starts scraping its hooves on the ground, calling them bugs. The Elbaf warriors ask who this pig is, and the Straw Hat explains it's a big-shot government guy. Top Man spins like a Beyblade, screaming he's gonna wipe them out. He turns his horns into blades, but Dory and Brogy block the strikes with Svalin's solar shield. The Gorosei ask if they even realize the mess they're making. The duo just shrugs. They're protecting their buddy. Then they launch that pork ball to infinity and beyond to roast some enemies later. But Saturn scoffs, calling them a bunch of bugs. If they're friends of the Straw Hats, they'll get exterminated too. He launches a rain of grape juice, and Luffy screams to watch out. It's poison. The kid's so hungry he bites into a tree and turns it into a baseball bat. He grabs a bucket of paint from the portal of imagination and shines it up. He puts on a helmet, swings like a pro, and sends every ball right back to the owner. They charge at the Gorosei, and Luffy's jaw drops as everything explodes. The Elbaf crew shouts that the flames block the forest. Perfect chance to bolt. But they have to hurry because these guys are basically immortal. The giants admit they've never heard of a race or skill that's immortal. Yet the beasts keep rising from the ashes like phoenixes. The three goofballs march, singing and celebrating their escape. Meanwhile, God Usopp leads a team to pull the grounded ship free. Robin's napping while Nami yells at Jinbei and Zoro to hurry. Their boots are failing, so running it out by brute force is easier. The beaver giant and the others are nearly at the ship, but three vice admirals are waiting to beat them down. The Hornhead says he won't let Bonnie escape. Sanji hears a weird noise somewhere. Back at the broadcast, Shaka warns Stella to drink the coffee. Time's running out, but it's so hot, he keeps burning his tongue. York watches the chaos, screaming to get her shackles off. Even Kaku says she's too loud, and Stussy tells her to zip it. She stops shouting just as Marcus Mars lands right on top of them. He asks where the room broadcasting the video is, but York nearly has a meltdown dealing with that talking parrot. On the marine ship, Kizaru's still down. Doctors ask where he's hurt to patch him up. He says it's a deep wound, but all he needs is rest. Meanwhile, in the flames, the legendary robot Emeth rises for the first time in 200 years, calling the name Joy Boy. He rips a giant steak from his chest, and somehow this robot is bleeding. The Marines shout that the Elbaf ship can't leave, but they freeze when the ground starts shaking. They look up and see a Megazord stomping around like nothing happened. The battalions report that on Egghead's northwest coast, something way bigger than the giants appeared, and fire doesn't even faze it. It crushes everything in its path, and even apologizes to Joy Boy for some reason. And the episode ends. My friend, things are about to get wild. Will the Straw Hats manage to escape Egghead with the help of the giants? If you want me to drop the next episode as soon as it's out, comment One Piece 1145. Smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't, so we can hit 100,000 subs by the end of the year. Only 65,000 more to go. I believe. Watch the next insane video on the screen, my dude. I'm out. Peace.